This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 20th of November 2020 and I am 2J.
I'm 2.
And I am GK. In case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, horror of COVID sick doctors on forced duty.
Yeah.
In the Standard, why reggae stopped.
Yes.
And in the Star, what shocked me about Kenya in 2006, says Obama. Let us begin with why reggae seems to have stopped.
Why reggae stopped? It has not stopped, Standard. They cannot stop. You cannot spend 2 years doing this with a lot of money and then it's stopped by William RUTO. Absolutely not. What actually happened was a suspension of the collection of signatures. And the reason this is actually makes sense. You cannot collect signatures without having a draft bill. You have a draft bill first and then you collect signatures. But I also want to tell people that there is a path to this referendum. And going by their plan, the plan is to have a referendum by 6th of June 2021. Is this possible? Absolutely. There are 5 milestones to this referendum. The first is a collection of 1 million signatures, which will probably happen next week. Thereafter, IEBC validate these signatures within 30 days. Thereafter, IEBC will submit the draft bill to the county assemblies, and county assemblies can actually do this within even 1 day or 1 week. And thereafter, the county assembly speakers will submit this draft bill to the joint houses of parliament, and the House of Parliament will discuss this within 90 days. Whether or not they decide, it will still go, and that's why I call the House of Parliament, they are a conveyor belt. For as long as the county assemblies have agreed to pass a draft bill, it will happen. Can this happen by June next year? Absolutely. It will happen by June next year. So they can cry to the high heavens and say no referendum. Trust me, take it to the bank. It will happen.
All right. Well, we have a 3-part criteria that we will use to break down the headlines. We'll ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? We would say it is topical, but it is speculative.
I quite like the headline,
I like it as well.
It's a bit of clickbait.
It is. I would buy this just to see what had happened. So in the Daily Nation, we have horror of COVID sick doctors on forced duty. And this is basically the revelation in front of the Senate Health Committee that frontline health workers who had come into contact with infected persons didn't go into isolation. They in fact are forced to continue to see patients. And only those with, if you're asymptomatic, you continue to work, and only those with symptoms, severe symptoms, are being excluded. So, okay, quite dire there, I think. But Dr. Mwachonda says that Kenya is facing a shortage of medical workers. And I know there was a lot of brain drain to the UK and to other European countries when they made a call for nurses. So a lot of Kenyan nurses did, in fact, get up and leave. So there's been a strain on the workforce. So they also go and tell us a total of 2,352 healthcare workers have tested positive, out of which 30 have died from the disease.
I think there are a lot of studies that have shown that you can continue to work while having COVID. But I think it has to be done sensibly. And I think that if the Ministry of Health is behaving recklessly and allowing stories like this to get out, it doesn't reflect very well on them. So style up, guys. Pull up your socks.
Please. Let's move to the Star.
The Star. What shocked me about Kenya in 2006? So Obama has recently written a new book. It's called A Promised Land. And I think in his efforts to do promotion and get the book to be sold, the Star decided to also pick it up and give him some coverage. And so what shocked Obama about Kenya in 2006 was all the commotion around his family being in the country. So he recounts in the book how his first time coming to Kenya was in 1988 at 27 years old. He was trying to understand his heritage, who he was, who his father was. But he says that when he came in later years in 2006, it was strictly business. And so he and his wife, Michelle Obama, were on an AIDS campaign, HIV awareness campaign. They were doing protest to get the population, aware about the stigma around it.
Yeah.
And, he just talked about all the commotion. And he says the only time that they got peace and quiet was when they went on safari.
Nice.
Yeah.
To the Mara?
To the Mara, yeah, when they were around the animals. Not much around the story. I think it's, as I said, just a bit of press for him.
But this is a lesson for people who are trying to stay in power for way too long. You can get a writing career and do other things like the Obamas.
Not in Africa.
But at least write a good book, right?
We haven't read it, so we don't know that it's not.
Yeah, okay, true.
So till we read it, maybe we'll have it on one of our final thoughts.
Yes, maybe.
So who do we give our winning headline, ladies?
Can we make it a losing headline?
Losing headline?
The Standard.
Is it the Standard?
Reggae,
Because reggae
pause.
continues.
Yeah, reggae is continuing.
Can't stop reggae.
There you have it.
Yeah. RUTO just went and took off the plug from the socket.
Okay.
The Standard gives us our losing headline. On to the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
Yeah.
Shall we begin with the Standard?
The Standard, you have a caricature of, no, it's the Standard. Sorry. You have a, caricature of Wanjiko, a drawing of Wanjiko, and she's seated and she's watching TV, and out of the TV is BBI, blah, 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 and she's angry and she switched it off. Yeah, we'll also say blah, blah, Gadoya, we'll also switch it.
You're switching him off
as well.
Yeah,
so you want to toss Gado immediately?
Yeah,
for
toss
being
Gado.
pessimistic
Absolutely.
and making no points.
Yeah, it will happen, whether you like it or not, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, let's do Daily Nation.
Daily Nation, you have, that is Ndula, I believe, and it's a caricature of Cyril Ramaphosa, he's the president of South Africa, and he
has a broken leg and he has a duck leg.
A duck leg. And he's stepping on eggshells, I believe.
Yeah.
And the caption there is African duck species. And the description there, lame duck, African Union, currently mute on atrocities in Uganda and Tigray, prefers to walk on eggshells.
Wow, that is a very telling commentary.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
I think the reference here is the AU failing to make any definitive statements or statements of retribution against Uganda and
but also,
Ethiopia.
But I think sometimes, look, it's not every time that you have unions getting into countries' businesses. If you have dissident figures in Ethiopia trying to cause problems for the whole nation, then they must be crushed. It's as simple as that.
But I think it is important for the AU as that body to make a commentary and call people out, call them to order.
But let me ask, what does the AU do?
I mean,
it's a shell of nothing.
Hypothetically, it's also saying if William Ruto causes a problem in this country, then are we saying he should not be dealt with, or he will be dealt with?
No, I don't know where.
Hypothetically,
I don't know where William Ruto has come from.
Hypothetically speaking,
where I'm saying is because you'll get the UN calling these countries out, you'll get the ICC calling these countries out, and we'll say Wazungus once again have stepped in, but we ought to have a statement.
Look, when Israel gets bothered by elements that are causing it problems, do you see?
Sorry, wait. Are you saying that Israel is being disturbed by people, not the disturber?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna put a pause on that. Let us describe the Star. In the Star, we have a table, and on this table we have a caricature of none other than Yoweri Museveni. And we have the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy.
Yeah.
And at the table is the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
And Museveni is saying, let me play peacemaker.
Yeah.
But the thing to note here is that if you look at Museveni's feet, he's stepping on the neck of none other than Bobby Wine. And Ethiopian Prime Minister as well is stepping on perhaps the Tigray Tigrays. I don't support the killing and maiming of civilians, absolutely not. But I think some countries should be given the latitude to deal with their own problems. Maybe later when this thing escalates, when the violence escalates, maybe that's when the African...
But I think the violence has escalated. I mean, I think people took to the streets way before Bobby Wine was arrested because they were unhappy with lots of situations in their country. And I think if the people take to the streets, it's showing something collective that they're trying to, get across.
Anyway, Museveni will win in the elections. This thing will be sorted out. I'm sorry if people have lost families, but it's, let's be real. It is what it is.
I knew you were going to say that, and I was going to say it ironically, but you did. But then, okay.
It is what it is.
Wow.
Okay, so who do we give our winning cartoon, between the Star or the Daily Nation?
I think the Star is quite funny. Yeah, serious commentary.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let's give the Star. Star gets our winning cartoon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now for our final thought, but before we get there, please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
And now our final thought, it is inspired by a book entitled Writing on the Wall, Social Media, the First 2,000 Years by Storm by Tom Standage.
Nice. Before you get there, can we do a summary of the week?
Go ahead.
So on Monday, we looked at the book, The Creation of the Media, Political Origins of Modern Communications by Paul Starr. And in the book, the author travels back in time to show us how political decisions played a pivotal role in the development of the media in America. On Tuesday, our final thought was inspired by a book entitled Johannes Gutenberg and the Printing Press by Diana Childress. And the book takes us on the incredible journey of Gutenberg and his efforts towards making the printing press with a movable type, and how Gutenberg's press is considered as instrumental in the European Renaissance and is one of the greatest innovations of the second millennium.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, we delved into the book Marconi, The Man Who Networked the World by Mark Raboy. And the book is a biography of Marconi, who is known as the father of radio. One of the most interesting things that we learned was Marconi's role in saving the survivors of the famous Titanic shipwreck. And in the book, we learn the incredible story of a man ahead of his time, who saw all the advancements that could be made despite what other inventors in his era could imagine. For Marconi, impossible was really nothing. And on Thursday, we examined the book Television in the Age of Radio, Modernity, Imagination, and the Making of a Medium by Philip W. Sewell. And in the book, the author offers a unique account on how television came to be, not just from the institutional struggles that led to its emergence, but also from the cultural concerns that were central for the rise of it as an industrial modernity. And today is Friday, and the writing's on the wall.
So one of the facts that I was surprised to learn from this book is that each month people spend a total of 300 billion minutes, which is equivalent of 600,000 years on Facebook.
Wow.
That's every month. So we spend an average of 600,000 years every month on Facebook alone. And so critics claim that lengthy stays on Facebook's, eternal scroll can result in loneliness, envy, and self-loathing, and that the service actually disgraces public discourse.
Yes.
But then on the other hand, you have supporters argue that Facebook promotes trust, curiosity, and political engagement. And so I think there's quite a bit of a balance. We're not really sure on which side we go. But it seems clear that the growth of Facebook and other social media platforms has changed attitudes towards consuming and sharing information, and it has reshaped ideas about privacy, protest, and even how we self-identify.
Right.
And so in this book, Standage chronicles the increasingly sophisticated ways that people shared information with each other, spontaneously and organically over the centuries. So he looks at the papyrus letters that the Roman statesmen used to exchange across the empire. He looks at the advent of hand-printed information that was used during the Protestant Reformation. And he also looks at the pamphlets that spread propaganda during the French and American revolutions. And one of my favorite ones was the little pigeons that were used to send messages across. They were called Columba livia domestica. So they were domesticated pigeons, I think we all know, and they would tie the little message around their feet and then send them off to, share letters or information. And so with the rise of newspapers in the 19th century, then radio and television, mass media, we really saw this consolidation of information in the hands of very few moguls. But the internet has brought this information sharing phenomenon back full circle. And the spreading of news along social media has become very powerful. So in this book, Standage attempts to chart social media from its earliest incidences to now. So he says that social media isn't this new phenomenon. It actually existed as early as, 2 BC. And he starts with the Roman Empire, and he looks at the Acta Diurna. And these were daily Roman official notices, and they're called the first kind of gazette, the first newspapers. And they were carved on stone or metal and presented on message boards in public forums. And so in many ways, they function like the earliest newspapers that we see today. And he notes that these were the beginnings of informal messaging systems. And I think that this book really reminds us about how modern behavior echoes that of prior centuries. So the Catholic Church, for example, faced similar dilemmas when deciding on how to respond to Martin Luther's attacks in the early 16th century. And that's kind of like what we see today when modern institutions are trying to deal with how to respond to public criticism on the internet. And so as you kind of add together all the examples that he gives in this book, you see that the freedom to write, whether in a pamphlet, on TV, on the radio, or even on the internet, is just the freedom to share intellectual ideas. And I think that's something that humans have naturally gravitated towards as early as back in the day and today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This I like this Roman story, especially the Roman informal mail delivery system. It was very similar to social media as constructed today. Now, he tells us that the Roman Empire writers, like Cicero, depended on a network of slaves and couriers known as the tabellari. It is Italian. I said it right, Tuje. Yeah, and these tabellary fellows, they used to keep up with the latest politics, philosophy, and even gossip. And messages were transmitted in the shortest time, within days or within hours. Now, for the first time in history, he says, news and gossip, both personal and political, would circulate in large quantities. Now, the messages sometimes were communicated, well, sometimes formal, sometimes informal, sometimes in jokes. But they were abbreviated. See, the way you would abbreviate today on social media, say law or BTW or WTF or Mao, you know, they were transmitted in the exactly same way. Now, the Romans had this iPad-sized, like, erasable slates where they would write, I don't know how they would write it, I don't know whether they had pencils, but they would write it and they would also sort of rub it off as well. Now, because of limited space, messages had to be shortened, just like we do like on Twitter, you know. Now, after sending a message, it was common for Romans to feel anxious about the kind of response they would get from their peers. Now, it was equivalent of sending a cheeky message to Tuje and expecting a response back, only that you will not see Tuje is now typing.
And you'd be anxious waiting.
No, left on red, ghosted.
Yeah, or blue ticked.
I like that. So this book got me thinking about the impact that social media has had on our politics. It's very common now that you'll see trending hashtags or you know, trending topics and things like that. And we saw what happened with Cambridge Analytica and things like that in the previous elections. But what's interesting is I picked up a few things. So firstly, even to just be in the space where you can advertise and use the online platform to its full extent, you have to have a lot of money. So it is said that former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg once spent more than $1 billion of his own money before dropping out of, you know, a race, an election.
It was this election, 2020.
Exactly. And you see, so it takes cash to run for public office, but it's also what gives the incumbency its advantage. So basically what happens is political newcomers often don't have that cash in which to, you know, spend on advertising and sponsorships and things like that. However, social media has come to level a sort of playing field, because now you can come as a newcomer, political newcomer, and you're basically, you can speak directly to your constituents via Twitter, via Facebook, via YouTube. It is, you know, you can do it. You can tell them what your policy idea is, from what you think that is to what, you know, you had for dinner. You can literally go the full gambit. One of the other things they say is that new candidates, political candidates, are able to humanize themselves a lot more. But we're seeing it with older candidates as well. I mean, often if you go onto RUTO's Twitter page, you can see what he's up to. You can see,
wheelbarrows.
Other than wheelbarrows, you can see him in prayer session, but you can see him do things that traditionally maybe you wouldn't have been able to see. So we can go back to the American election. In 2008, that was the first presidential election in which the internet and the social media sort of medium was really used to its full extent. And Barack Obama did this so well. In fact, he did it so well that, especially on YouTube, he had people watch his YouTube videos to the tune of 14.5 million hours.
Wow. And
Obama led McCain voters in all categories of online political activism. And we saw that when they did the research, young voters were much more active on online politics. And it's because if you posted more about yourself, that young generation was able to find out more and felt more confident in voting for you. So you find that 30% of all those who posted political content online were under the age of 25. 66% of that same demographic are who voted for Obama. So you have an instance where McCain was only voted for at 33%, showing that Obama's prominence in online politics greatly sort of increased his chances of winning. And then in 2012, again, online social media is a game changer in terms of financing. So you find that they did these data sort of analysis between Obama and Romney. They each hired sort of these data scientists, and they spent quite a bit of money. So we were told that in the aggregate, Obama spent more than Romney on digital campaigns by a factor factor of 10. So that Romney spent 4.7 million and Obama spent $47 million.
Wow.
And so there's a clear difference between the Obama and the Romney campaign presence on social media throughout 2012.
Yeah.
And then you have stuff like Obama had 20 million followers on Twitter versus Romney's 1.2 million. On Facebook, Obama had 29 million likes versus Romney's 7.9 million likes. On Instagram, Obama had 1.4 million followers versus Romney's 38,000 followers.
Wow.
So for us who are looking into the next election, I think it will be interesting to see how social media is going to be used, manipulated, and all sorts of things in the run-up to the next election.
But it's so funny. I think if you're going to use social media and spend that much money, you have to be sure you're going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, Bloomberg's 1 billion.
Just went.
Can you imagine spending $1 billion and you lose?
It's
Oh
interesting.
my
And then, so you have a climate as well in America where average people like you and I donate to these campaigns. And so you find like his online donations for Obama rose from 500 million in 2008 to $690 million in 2012, just by having that presence
It's crazy.
Online.
I mean, biggest lesson here is don't spend money on wheelbarrows, buy followers.
Oh my goodness. Well,
on
on the day where we had a losing headline from the Standard and a winning cartoon from the Star, I want to leave you with this. Malcolm X once said, "The media is the most powerful entity on earth. They have the power to make the innocent look guilty and to make the guilty look innocent. And that's power because they control the mind of the masses."
I can hear too. I'm writing that quote down.
So have a lovely weekend. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, but find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Paying Free to Air, and Star Times.